Thanks for joining us today. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. In the face of rising consumer prices, Korea's finance minister promises to roll out additional measures if needed. China's forex reserves officially broke through the $3 trillion floor last month, and eyes are on what Beijing may do to defend the yuan and staunch capital outflows. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. Reflecting rising concerns about stronger inflationary pressure felt especially by consumers, Korea's top economic policymaker said maintaining price stability will be a key priority as he briefed lawmakers on policy guidelines for the year. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
Korea's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho said the government will work to prevent inflationary pressure seen in agro, livestock, and petroleum products from spreading to other goods. While briefing the Parliament's Strategy and Finance Committee Tuesday, Minister Yoo said his team will carefully monitor economic conditions and roll out additional measures if needed. This in response to rising consumer prices already seen in the first inflation report of the year released earlier this month. Consumer prices rose at the fastest pace in over 4 years this January, with on-year growth surpassing 2% for the first time after staying at 1% level for the previous 4 months. Adding to concerns are the temporary factors like the lasting effects of the bird flu outbreak from last year, one of the worst the country has seen to date, and now the foot and mouth disease that is taking a toll on livestock farms. Egg prices had shot up 62% early last month on year due to supply shortages, although prices have regained some stability over the weeks. It's been a little over a week since the first case of foot and mouth disease was confirmed, but already meat prices are on a rapid upward trend. Korea Institute for Animal Products Quality Evaluation says the price of first-class homegrown beef shot up 10.2%, while the wholesale price for pork rose 9.9% last Wednesday, a sharp increase in just over 8 days. The threat comes from rising prices potentially being coupled with sagging growth.
This trend of rising consumer prices could lead directly to stagflation, especially when it comes to the price of fresh foods, due to the outbreak in the livestock industry. The impact of this is instantly felt by consumers.
Although such temporary factors will pass, the expert adds that such frequent price hikes of everyday groceries will freeze up consumer sentiment even more, making it difficult to boost demand in times of already weak spending. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
And supporting those concerns of stronger inflationary pressure, data shows that Korea's import prices shot up last month, extending gains from previous months. The Bank of Korea says import prices climbed 2.1% in January from December, marking the 5th straight month of increase. Now, the rise came on the back of the cheaper Korean won against the greenback, as well as robust global oil prices. The average price of benchmark Dubai crude stood at slightly over $53 last month, up over 3% from a month ago. From a year earlier, import prices spiked more than 13%, marking the biggest on-year jump in 5 years and 3 months. Export prices were also up 1.1% in January from the previous month. Let's now get a quick check on how the markets fared here in Seoul today. Korean shares ended on a down note on Tuesday as investors' risk appetite receded ahead of U.S. Fed Chair Janet Yellen's semi-annual congressional testimony. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi was down 0.2%, finishing the day at 2074.57. The tech-heavy Kosdaq closed down slightly at 611.54. The Korean won strengthened against the greenback to 1,137.41. Overnight on Wall Street, a strong momentum has swept through. All three indices hit fresh record highs for the third straight session on the back of strong corporate profits and overall U.S. economic growth. The S&P 500 saw its market value surpass the $20 trillion mark for the first time on Monday as investors bet on the Trump administration to unveil business-friendly tax cuts soon. Overdue wages registered last year here in Korea reached up to $1.2 billion, reported by over 320,000 employees. But among them, 1 out of 5 were young workers under 30 years old. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
A fair day's wage for a fair day's work. It's one of the most basic agreements between employer and employee. But in Korea last year, the amount of overdue payment for workers aged 15 to 29 reached a record high. According to the Ministry of Employment and Labor, levels reached as high as $122 million reported by nearly 67,000 youths that filed complaints. Not being able to rely on their paychecks has also squeezed their finances. Last year, about 9,100 young Koreans applied for court-mediated debt workout programs, which is up 13.7% compared to the year before. The government says the surge in unpaid wages is largely due to the financial difficulties of small businesses like convenience stores and chicken joints that mainly hire young people. Some of these business owners have pushed wage payments to the bottom of their list of priorities as they try to stay afloat during difficult times. At this, the government said it will launch full-fledged investigations and take strong measures, such as disclosing the names of business owners with backlogged wage payments. Experts also point out that it's necessary for the government to tighten supervision of small enterprises and actively intervene in unfair wage disputes to prevent such incidents from recurring. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
China's foreign currency reserves dropped below the $3 trillion mark last month, falling to the lowest since early 2011, after the yuan capped its steepest annual decline in 20 years. And with that, China faces growing pressure to stem further significant capital outflows while also trying to maintain confidence in the yuan. Take a look.
The Chinese yuan officially joined the IMF's basket of reserve currencies in October, along with the US dollar, the euro, the yen, and the pound sterling. The yuan's inclusion into the special drawing rights, or SDR, was seen as a milestone in globalizing the renminbi and was considered a result of China's reforms and opening up of its financial sector. 4 months have passed since then, but China's foreign exchange reserves have dipped below the $3 trillion mark in January for the first time in almost 6 years, as the country tries to prop up the weakening yuan. And now, concerns are on the rise over the speed at which China is using up its ammunition to defend its currency and slam the brakes on capital outflows. Experts say the biggest force behind this trend is the US dollar, as major uncertainties presented by President Donald Trump's economic policies and the pace of possible rate hikes by the Federal Reserve remain unclear.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Yang Jun-suk from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Happy to be here.
So in recent years, China has been focusing a lot on promoting greater use of the yuan in global trade and investment. So what could be the reason behind this?
Okay, well, there's some advantages of having your currency as a key currency or a reserve currency. For example, the biggest gain from your country being a key currency is probably the reduced risk of having a currency crisis, because you can borrow or lend using your own currency, and you don't have to worry about running up a foreign currency reserve, because you can always print your own currency.
Right.
Some other advantages include reduction of cost in trade and international finance transactions. Your currency is likely to be valued very highly. So that means cheap imports, and you can keep up a trade deficit for an extended period of time, because other countries want your currency as a reserve currency.
Right.
So those are some of the things that you gain from becoming a major currency in international markets, but there's also some disadvantages as well. First, you lose the control over the exchange rates and your interest rate, because, well, the demand and supply of your currency is now a lot of it is from foreign participants, and they're outside the control of your government. Also, the your currency being highly valued, appreciated, as I mentioned earlier. The good news is you have cheap imports. The bad news is your exports become expensive, so you're likely to run into trade deficit, and your export industry is likely to not do very well. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. But I think from China's point of view, what they want to do is if they become a major global currency, they can have more effect over the global economic environment like the United States or European Union. So I think that's part of the goal that they're aiming for.
Oh, so like we heard in the report last October, the yuan was included in the IMF's SDR. Do you think then that inclusion has helped the yuan to become more globalized since then?
Well, I think it helped them gain more publicity. And I think everybody recognizes that the yuan has a more wider role to play in the future. But I don't think it helped them too much in the short run. Whenever I teach my students about major currencies, how you become a major or a reserve currency, I give them what I call a common sense question. If you're going to receive some money from abroad, from say your relatives abroad, would you prefer your money in dollars, euro, yen, or yuan? And yuan always places itself at the bottom of that list because you cannot really do much with the yuan, or not as much as you can do with the dollar or the euro.
Right.
You can't invest it very well because there's not enough financial products. There's unlike the dollar, it's not used as much, so people won't accept it as much. So in order to become a major global currency, it really needs to become more liquid. And you have two fronts. The government has to do more to provide more financial products and liberate their own capital financial markets. And then people have to have more confidence in the yuan. And neither of those, I think, are happening in the short run.
Now, tell us more about China's forex reserves, which fell below $3 trillion in January. How did this come about?
Okay, I think there's basically three major reasons. The first was mentioned in the report. The United States interest rate went up while the Chinese growth rates are slowing down. So there's not that much good investment opportunities in China, but there's some more opportunities elsewhere, especially in the United States where the interest rate is going up, so more investment is flowing outside.
Right.
And then there's more volatility, there's more instability in the Chinese financial market. So that's also leading to a lot of capital outflow. And because of that, the yuan has been depreciating, and the government doesn't want the yuan to depreciate too much, so they've been intervening in the foreign exchange market to strengthen the yuan. That means selling their reserves of US dollars, so that also accounts for why the reserves are falling.
Now, some are actually saying that China's efforts to curb outflows by tightening capital controls are actually weighing on China's efforts to globalize the yuan. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, that feeds back to what I said earlier. Now, if they open up in order to globalize the yuan, they need to have more financial products. They need to open their financial markets more so people have more opportunity to develop new financial products involving the yuan. But if they open the market too much, then you have a lot of short-term capital coming in and out, which can play havoc with the domestic financial market as well as the foreign exchange market. Given the global instabilities that we have so far, I think China has made the decision that even at the cost of delaying internationalization of the yuan, they will keep their market somewhat insulated. They've opened a lot in the last few years. Some people account the current instability because of the market opening they already had. So I think they're going to stay off and keep their markets somewhat insulated for a while, at least until the global situation stabilizes a bit, and then perhaps open it up again and further internationalize the yuan. But I think for now, they're making the decision that it's better to hold off on internationalization of the yuan and keep the domestic market stable.
So then what's next? I mean, what moves can we expect China to make to defend the yuan as well as staunch capital outflows?
Okay, well, the obvious move is for them to raise the interest rate, but they cannot do that right now because their economy is not doing very well.
Right.
So they're probably going to have to depend on job owning, that's government statements, and then propping up the exchange rate market, selling the US dollar that they have, and also using regulations to try to keep the money from going going out of the market, especially in the short run. So I think for now, they're going to concentrate on the domestic financial market and not concentrate so much on the international aspect of the yuan.
Then what impact do you think those strategies will have on the Korean economy? And also, what measures should Korea put forth in response to that?
Okay, I think you can look at it from 2 points of view. The long-term foreign direct investment point of view. We had a lot of so-called China money coming into Korea. That may slow down a bit. Because they don't want the capital to flow too much out of China.
Okay.
But in the short run, because the domestic opportunities in China are not very good, some of the money which might have gone to China may be coming to Korea, and some of the money that's in China may be coming to Korea as well.
Right.
But on the other hand, because Korean economy is tied so much to China, when the Chinese economy is not doing very well, that might also affect investment in Korea as well. So in the short term, things are very iffy. In the long term, we're going to keep the foreign direct investment that came into Korea already from China, but new investments are probably going to slow down.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.